I'm not going to sugarcoat it, I have a serious problem with Tekken 8's DLC. A lot of what I'll be discussing in this video will also apply to plenty of other fighting games, and I'm well aware of that. But I'll be focusing on Tekken as that's simply the game I'm most familiar with. There's been lots of criticism online about various things regarding Tekken 8's DLC, like reselling previous DLC characters, locking the new replay feature behind a paywall, and other stuff I'll be discussing later on. But the first and my biggest problem with Tekken 8's DLC is something I haven't seen many people talk about, and that is simply the price of entry. Tekken 8's character DLC, along with the DLC of basically every other fighting game, is simply too expensive. I don't think $8 American is worth it for one single character, especially when the full game is $70. Let's look at Tekken 8 as a package and see what you get for the cost of the game. For that $70, you get 32 characters, technically 31, a story mode, 16 different stages, a ridiculous amount of music, and a ton of other more casual modes like the arcade quest, Tekken Ball, the character episodes, and so on. Tekken 8 launched as a very complete game. It's hard to argue that this game is lacking content, but this DLC, if you take the 31 characters the game launched with and assume that this was literally all the game had, it would have come out to about $4.50 per character. And again, this is assuming that $70 just got you the characters and nothing else. And here we are, paying $8 for a single character. Remember, that's $8 American. Over here in Canada, it's $11 per character, and I've heard in some third world countries, the exchange rate is so bad, they're paying a ridiculous amount of money for these characters. And look, a lot of people are going to say that these characters are expensive to make, and the company needs to charge this much to make a profit. But you don't think this is a little bit excessive? They're already making profit on the game itself, which had 31 unique characters, but they need to sell each character for $8 just so they can pay their employees and make profit? No. I don't even remotely buy into that. I see this as corporate greed, and nothing more than that. Think about the culture around DLC in fighting games. Almost every game ends up revealing the upcoming DLC character before the game's even out. These developers absolutely know what they're doing, and probably plan these DLC characters alongside the game and plan to sell them separately. So when people ask stuff like why Eddie Gordo or Lydia weren't part of the main roster, it's simple. They know people will pay, and they probably make way more profit selling you an individual character than they would have if you had just bought the game and then never paid again. They don't even try to add value anymore. At least with games like Smash Bros. Ultimate, each character included an extra stage and a bunch of music tracks, and this was only $6 made by the same company. Now granted, Tekken characters are a lot more complicated than almost any other character in the fighting game genre, but I still think this is just too much. And looking at other fighting games, everyone's doing the same thing here. There's no reason why Akuma should be this expensive in Street Fighter. I don't want to stay on the price for too long, but I just think it's pretty crazy how normalized the insane prices have become for these characters. If you want to buy the Deluxe Edition upgrade pack, you'll need to spend $40 American. This is $10 per character, and the only bonuses you get are a bunch of worthless avatar skins and 3 days early access to the DLC characters. Wow. What a deal. And listen, I know they need to charge money to keep the game alive, and DLC characters help fund its further development and maintenance. It's just too expensive though, to the point where a lot of casual players just don't think it's worth the cost. For a lot of the more try-hard competitive players, they don't even think twice about buying all the DLC characters because they play the game so much. But for a lot of the more casual audience, and people who are more frugal with money like me, $32 or $40 with the pass for 4 characters just seems excessive. Think about it. You're paying almost the price of the full game for 8 characters, or even more if you get the 2 character passes. Even though the initial game launched at $70 with 32 characters. I'm not going to tell anyone how to spend their money, but just understand that there's a huge portion of us who don't want to spend this much money for such little content. Just in the same way when we criticized the Battle Pass, people just said, just don't buy it if you don't like it. I'm sure a lot of people are saying the same thing here to defend the prices. But unfortunately, at least for the players who are actually interested in improving and learning in this game, this is not a great option, and this is why. Remember that cool new feature Tekken introduced that allowed you to take control of your replays to practice and improve at the game? One of the most innovative features ever seen in the fighting game, allowing people to learn matchups and improve without spending hours in training mode? Yeah, they locked that behind a paywall. You are actually unable to take control of your own non-DLC character while watching a replay against a DLC character. I don't want to sound dramatic here, but what were they thinking? Sorry to interrupt my rant, but if you guys want to support more scripted Tekken 8 content like this, then please consider subscribing to the channel. I hate doing these, but the YouTube algorithm can be pretty unforgiving and random at times, so your support really helps me get closer to my dream of hopefully being able to make videos like this for a living one day. Anyway, thank you guys so much. Let's get back to the video. This is a terrible decision. And like a lot of the other stuff we've talked about, this is based on pure greed. People have long debated if you should be able to get access to DLC characters in training mode without paying, so you can figure out the matchup and learn how to beat them. But this is a step even further than that. They are blatantly saying to our face, if you ever want to have a chance at beating Eddie Gordo, you need to pay the $8 to buy this character. And, oh, this cool new feature that you thought would save you? Yeah, we're gonna lock that behind a paywall as well. Just absolutely ridiculous. I would love to see anyone try and defend this, because as far as I'm concerned, it's completely unjustifiable. I've actually had to resort to labbing Eddie at in-person tournaments on other people's PS5s because I don't want to support this. And it really doesn't help that these DLC characters are some of the most matchup check and gimmicky characters in the game. And if you've seen the leak of the next 2 DLC characters, let's just say it's not going to get any better. Speaking of the character selection for the DLC, let's talk about another pretty big issue. I'm just gonna say it. Reselling DLC characters should not be a normalized practice in fighting games. Lydia was released in Tekken 7 in 2021. We bought her 3 years ago and they're selling her back to us already. I'm actually not aware of any other fighting game trying to pull something like this within such a close time frame, so Namco being brave enough to try something like this is pretty crazy. Admittedly, she does look quite different from how she did in Tekken 7, along with Eddie, but this is still just such a bad look. In terms of Eddie himself, I don't have as much of an issue with him. Holding back legacy characters to sell back is scummy, sure, but I'm pretty much used to that at this point. Although you could certainly make the argument that because of how soon they sold him after the game launched, that they should have included him in the base game. And it's pretty obvious that they purposely left him out so they could sell him back to us. But this whole issue is only going to get worse as more DLC characters get announced. It's been pretty much confirmed that the next 2 DLC characters will also be returning DLC from Tekken 7, and while they aren't as recent as Lydia, I'm still just fundamentally against the idea of reselling DLC from game to game. Especially when it comes to fan-favorite characters. There's no reason why Akuma shouldn't have been in the base game for both Street Fighter V and 6, besides greed. But they get away with it because they know people will buy it. Sure, you can protest by not buying it, or by review bombing the game, but at the end of the day, I truly don't think it'll be enough to change this. And I'm sure this is going to continue far beyond the first character pass. This is going to keep happening throughout the whole life of Tekken 8, and probably keep happening in Tekken 9. It's just crazy to me that Namco would see a character like Armor King, who they revamped and made super cool for the Tekken 7 DLC, become one of the most popular characters in the game, and then remove him for the next game just to inevitably sell him back. And yes, I'm willing to bet a lot of money Armor King's definitely coming back. Honestly, pretty much all the legacy characters that were sold as DLC in Tekken 7 have a pretty decent chance of coming back, especially if this game's gonna last as long as the Tekken development team has said it's gonna. We could be seeing anywhere from 20 to 40 DLC characters throughout the lifetime of this game. And the sad part is, they know we'll buy it. These DLC practices are just so ingrained to the fighting game genre, and the culture around these characters is so full of hype and excitement that people just don't think about this stuff. It's such a win-win for the developers. They get to make ridiculous amounts of money by overcharging and reusing characters that they know will buy, and also get to create hype and happiness in the community because people just so desperately want to play as these characters. At the end of the day, if the DLC is worth it depends on who you are. If you're gonna spend $40 on 4 characters that you know you'll play for hundreds of hours, then it's almost certainly worth it. But a lot of people, like myself, fall into traps where we don't actually care about the characters, but either just want to buy them so we have all the characters, which by the way, tournament setups are required to have all the characters, or in my case, want to buy them so they can actually learn how to beat them, so I don't just lose all my rank points to every single Eddie Gordo player. I think it's in these cases where the DLC becomes pretty predatory. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you think about Tekken 8's DLC. Do you disagree with these points and think it's all worth it? Or do you agree with me that these practices shouldn't be normalized? I'm sure I missed some things as well, so feel free to let me know. I'll be down there chatting with you guys in the comments as always. Anyway, that's about all I got. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe to support this channel. As always, I want to give a big thanks to my Patreon supporters and YouTube members, and I'll see you guys later. Take it easy.